Hey everyone, thanks so much for the invitation. So I'll start because I think Jesse is having still a little bit of technical problems. So I'm SkyGolpe. I'm a cross-media artist. I've been making art for the past 15 years. I started my first approach with art was actually as a street artist in London around 2005, 2006. So I spent in the streets of London a few years. My work was mostly conceptual in the street, which was kind of a new thing at that time because street art was really mainly figurative. So because of this passion, the more I was working in the street, the more I was realizing my passion for conceptual art. So actually, I decided to move back to Italy and I began working more in the studio, in my studio. So mostly with conceptual photography and installations. So that has been my main work for a very long time. I'd say for 5-6 years. But at the same time, I also love to mess with paint. So I never consider myself a painter really, but I definitely enjoyed to mess with paint, and I also began this kind of production of these faceless portraits on canvas. But again, for me was, even in this case, more a conceptual approach and not a painterly approach. I don't know if that makes sense. And then in 2020, I discovered NFTs, and I kind of had to decide what style, what style to propose in this ecosystem, and I just felt that I think that the faceless portraits could have actually worked better, rather than my conceptual work, because it was a little bit warmer. And I was really surprised. So basically, from my beginning, it really took off. And 2020 was still a time where basically were a bunch of freaks, a bunch of people that were really, everyone knew each other. So we met. I don't think. I mean, we all knew that like something big was going to happen, but we probably couldn't imagine then what happened next. So I was kind of involved with the big upbringing that then happened in NFTs, and so thanks to this, I actually managed to establish myself as a professional artist, as an independent artist. So I kind of fulfilled my life dream in a way, and since that I'm in the space, I basically focus more on the portrait work, I would say, especially in 2021, 22, because that was really my subject of study and of experimentation. So I dedicate lots of time to my faceless portraits, but then around the end of 22 and during this year, I'm also really going back a lot to my conceptual work, and my plan is to expand this medium inside the NFT space as well, a lot more than it is right now, because it's not even, I think it's probably not even a niche at the moment. So that's one of my big goals for the following years. And another thing that I discovered myself to be is a collector. So basically, I've been collecting constantly art. I think my big boom was with the Tedzos art. Really, that's when it really became serious to me, and I spent so much time in Iket Nung trying to collect works around that time. And also, I am involved in a few projects in the ecosystem. I love to support art and artists, mostly behind the scenes, because that's my approach. I think the most relevant project for me that I'm involved is Fake Whale at the moment, together with Jesse. And so I think this is a brief description of my identity.
We're still trying to check out whether Jesse is having issues and how to help.
Yo, I think
Hey,
I'm
Jesse.
here.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I didn't know if we had like a moderator or or if I should just start talking right after Sky or what. But anyways, I'll just go. My name is Jesse Draxler. I don't use Discord very much, very often at all. So that's the most interesting thing about me right now. I don't even know what to say. I never know what to say about myself or my career path because it's very singular. It doesn't, people ask me how to replicate it, or if you were to ask me, or people ask for advice on career, and I don't know what to say because it's very personal. I feel like my approach, everything that I do, is all very personalized to just the way that I am, my quirks, my oddities, the weird things about me and stuff. It's all very, very much dialed into myself. But in general, my interest in art started more as just kind of like visual culture, not so much art, going to museums and stuff like that. So being born in a very small town of less than like 1,000 people, my exposure to visual culture was mostly through album art because I'm huge into music, and then comic books and things like that. And so um, that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. I love that shit. And I was like, I want to make that shit. I want to make album covers and stuff like that. And like, obviously, as I became an adult and realized there's no money in that shit. So, anyways, but I'm still mostly interested in visual culture. And I just find art, or like what people consider to be the fine art practice, is just part of visual culture. Visual culture involves so much more than just that. And I'm interested in all. I want to have a bearing on all of it. I want to know everything about all of it, and I want to influence all of it as well. So my practice is spread out as far across the board as possible. I do a lot of album covers. I'm the co-owner of a record label, so I'm really deep in with music. I do a lot with the fashion industry. I've worked with many high-end fashion brands, like I won't even name them, but most of them almost at this point. Still doing a lot of that kind of stuff. But my idea was to really like thread my point of view through the pillars of culture. And honestly, the fine art world kind of came to me. I didn't really even go to that. Like it was more like I was doing the fashion, I was doing music, I was doing all this other stuff. And like it was just all of a sudden like curators were like, do you want to be in this show? And it was never really my goal to be in gallery shows. That just kind of happened. And then from there, at this point, I've had like 4 or 5 solo shows, and I'm working on my next one, which is the most significant thing I've ever done in my whole fucking life. Like literally, like I've never been married. I haven't had a kid or anything like that. It's like, this show is my child. This show will be my wedding reception. Like this is all that shit, So like, I'm just putting everything I have into it. It's I haven't announced a date yet, but it's coming up. Will say it's like early summer here in LA, and it will coincide with the release of my second book with Sacred Bones Records. And the book is also like my second major retrospect of my work, kind of in book form, 150 plus pages of all images, really some screenshots and stuff. There's like a loose narrative of social media artists leading into Web3. So anyways, these two things are just huge in my vision right now. There's really nothing that can take my eyes off of that or my mind off of that. So that's leading up to right now. And then I also do Fake Whale, all the interviews for Fake Whale. So anybody that pays attention to Fake Whale or watches those interviews, that's me. The guy that's talking to those people, that's me. So I'm very grateful to SkyGolpe for bringing me into the fold with the Fake Whale thing, because that's been just a giant part of my life as well. Aside from my personal practice, doing these interviews for Fake Whale and advancing the Web3 ecosystem by empowering artists with Fake Whale has been, my other main goal. So I don't know who's going to talk next, but I'm going to leave it to you, whoever that is.
I invite everyone to ask their questions.
Hi, I guess I'll start. Thank you both for being here. Such a privilege to get to chat with both of you. Jesse, so in addition to being an artist, I am the CFO and COO of Right Click Save, which you did a great interview that I really enjoyed with Alex, our editor-in-chief. And one of the things you mentioned in that article is that you don't have a gallery, and that's great in many ways, but also it means you have to do everything yourself. And I actually have a background in the traditional art world in like management. I worked at MoMA. I managed a big gallery. And I wonder if actually both of you could speak to sort of like the challenges of doing it all in this sort of Web3 art world, where if you don't, have someone sort of doing your marketing and helping you figure out pricing and all of these kinds of sort of administrative things, how you find the space and time to do that along with your artwork. And, you mentioned you're putting together this huge show, Jesse, and this book, like, yeah, just how do you juggle all of that and find time to focus on your art?
I'll start, but yeah, I mean, that's a great question because, sorry for anybody that heard that Bluetooth disconnected. That's a great question because like, I ask myself that all the time. There's not an answer for me. It's being completely neurotic, sociopathically narcissistic about what I'm doing, not sleeping a lot, not having a social life whatsoever. I mean, this sounds like jokes and everything like that, but it's the truth. I mean, I'm being honest. Like, I sacrifice a lot to do as much as I do because I know the amount of work that I do isn't, like a normal workload. It's a lot more than what a normal 40-hour work week would look like. But it's like prioritizing. Everything is really important, like prioritizing where your attention goes. And that's a trite answer still. And then I would also say delegating where you can is really important. So like I've hired a event producer, event manager, whatever, he's also a friend, but it's like, at least it's somebody that I can lean on a little bit, that can handle some things that I don't need attention. Like I don't need to know everything about the sponsors, right? So like, that's something that somebody else can handle when it comes to like putting together an event. But I mean, it's all about dedication and just like, how bad do you want it? And these are like, that's so lame, but it's the truth. It's like, if I didn't want it this bad, I wouldn't be doing as much as I'm doing. If I didn't, want it is like more than anything else, I wouldn't give it everything I've got. So, and then as far as like not having a gallery and stuff like that, galleries help a lot when it comes to selling artwork, because they're the ones with the list. Like basically when people talk about galleries being gatekeepers, at least in my opinion, the reason that they're the gatekeepers is that because they have these little lists of these rich people that will buy your art and they won't give it to anybody else. They won't share their lists or anything. So like that's a big part of it. And then the second part, at least for me, is logistics shit. Like they will ship your work. They will hold on to your work and store it if you want them to some degree, if they're representing you. And then they'll ship it for you to the person who buys it, and you'll just get the money in the end. So that 50% that you're paying a gallery, as you know, the person who asked this question, which I'm still trying to figure out how to see who's asking the question, but I think it was Danielle. They're also like sending, like you just get money in the end. So they're sending it to the buyer. They're doing all this stuff. They're paying the rent for when they displayed it and everything like that. So 50%, it seems like a lot, and it is. I still think it's a lot, but they're actually doing a lot. And there's actually costs associated that they're picking up quite a bit. Like the shipping costs, like they'll never, like you don't, like I didn't know how much it costed to ship my panels until I had to do this myself, and they're really expensive. So when I said like, yeah, not having a gallery, but now I'm realizing I have to do it all myself. Like I wouldn't have it any other way at this point. I'm very much still holding on to what everybody was talking about in 2021, where they were saying self-sovereignty, artists don't need galleries anymore. When I heard that, I was like, that's fuck yeah, because I always had a hard time with the gallery world, with my gallery. It was always a struggle. I felt like they were always trying to get me to fit in with some other crowd so that they could be in these shows or in this art fair, whatever. So when everybody was like, we don't need galleries anymore, artists can just do it on their own and blah, 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 I was like, this sounds great. And now everybody seems to be actually somewhat scrambling to get under the roof of somebody else, or have somebody curate them or have somebody do that stuff for them. And it seems like we're in a weird time working out how that's going to go, or like what responsibility is going to be where, what costs get associated where, what splits are what. That still seems very get figured out now. But I'm not like, I'm more interested, like still I'm going to do it myself. So I dropped my gallery. I had a gallery up until late 2021. became somewhat successful in the NFT community. And as soon as I thought it was viable, I was like, I'm out of here with the galleries. And I left my gallery. It was a big to do. You know, my old gallerist hated NFTs. You know, it was that general or the early hate wave. You know, that time, that era. So, anyways, yeah. I don't know if any of this answered your question, but I'm going to pass it to Sky.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, I mean, there is a huge distinction, I think, between physical art and digital art. You know, I think that this new technology, this new movement, in a way, has put the industry on the urgency of redefine completely, you know, especially the part that is dealing with digital art, because as you say, with physical is slightly different. And I agree on the fact that 50% might be perceived as a lot, but I think that if you work with very competent people, with a great team to support you, and that covers many things, especially on the physical level, that kind of makes sense. And I think that's the reason why the industry eventually got to that percentage as a standard. Now, when we get to physical art, that doesn't mean, of course, that then many physical galleries began taking advantage of this system, but that's a completely another story. But when we go to digital art, it becomes much more interesting. And what I'm very interested about is also the new creation of professional figures, in a way, in the field of art, that are really capable of reading the necessity of the market from one side and the necessity of the artist from the other. And I think we are just at the beginning of this, you know, like what is happening here in the crypto ecosystem, I think is going to be a sort of little blueprint of what then is going to expand further, you know, in the contemporary art industry, because I think digital art is here to stay. And I don't particularly agree on the narrative that digital art is going to replace physical art. But for sure, the segment of digital art will start to coexist in most of the galleries around the world as a segment of market. And so, I mean, it's just so fascinating for me. Like, I spend a lot of time thinking about these new dynamics. But, you know, coming back actually to the initial question, as you said, it's really hard. I think that if you want to really take also the professional side of being artist in a serious way, you have two choices. One is creating your own company, because, you know, let's be honest, is if you look at the skills and professional tasks that you need to cover, if you really want to look after your ecosystem, is pretty huge. So you have two options. So either you create your own company, your own big studio, or you really have to partner up with you know, a team of competent people that is able to support you. So on that, the research is very tough, because again, in our situation, it's not easy to find you know, established entities that can understand very well our necessities. But I'm very optimistic, and I think it's a super interesting topic, to be honest.
Thank you both. Those were amazing answers. And yeah, I think, you know, obviously digital art versus physical art, you know, what the galleries can do. And like, you know, Jesse, you're talking about the shipping, and yeah, it's crazy complicated, the logistics, and it's crazy expensive. So if you're just working in you know, physical media, it might make more sense than if you're primarily or only working in digital art. But yeah, those were amazing answers. They gave me a lot to chew on. So thank you guys.
Hi guys, hi there. This is Alex. Thank you, Jesse and SkyGolpe, for coming here for the talk. That's super cool. I wanted to ask you about Fake Whale, because I've followed your careers of both of you, both in the you know, real life and in the NFT space, and you've been doing pretty well. And then you've came up with this project of Fake Whale, and I'm a super fan of the daily contamination and the contents you're putting out on your Instagram account, and the interviews that Jesse's doing to very, very good artists I really admire. And I was wondering what's exactly Fake Whale, what's the future of the project, and what type of void you're trying to cover within the space. Because I've got the feeling that you've got a very defined editorial line and a very defined aesthetic taste. And also you're trying to bridge the IRL world with NFT space. And I would love to get to know more in your words of what's the project about and what are you trying to add in terms of value to the community.
I'll go with this one. So thanks a lot for the question. Fake Whale, to be honest, was born with three objectives in a way. So the first objective is the one that you touch, because I think we all, the quality of the artists here is really great, and I think that all of us kind of realize sometime that qualitative content in the NFT is really almost like a niche. So there are not many projects that are really focused on art. And I know this kind of, it sounds a bit iconoclast in the NFT ecosystem, because this idea of breaking with the past is sort of like a big mantra in the space, but in reality, I believe that we should not really see things in this way, and I think that knowledge comes from a very long way, and so we should actually think how to evolve things, because as Jesse was saying in the beginning, there have been quite a bit of hate waves coming from artists to the NFT space, and I think that this is mainly because we almost spoke two different languages, especially in the first time of the NFT. So, and not many artists have been so curious, and crazy enough to go and actually dig to realize that actually there was much more than what the appearance or the media was portraying around, So the first objective was really to try to erase, these kind of barriers between, let's say, the contemporary art world and the NFT world, and sort of creating a bridge to get more and more artists to be comfortable to come and experiment into the NFT space. So creating this sort of middle ground language, that could be understandable for both parts. For the other big objective was really to put down free curation on what we believe to be great art, because that's another thing that for me is super important. And as well, I come as well from a background really active on visual art and fashion and music. And for me and Jesse, I put Jesse in this sentence as well, because we spoke about this many times. So style, and visual attention, is extremely important as well. And we both realized that this was a bit lacking as well in the NFT space, because, for example, here we are in Vertical, which is one of the very few example of people that are actually trying to do things in this direction, but we are still extremely very few to do this. So the other idea was really to try to bring a sort of aesthetic coherence and really evaluate good works related to art and really spotlight them, And I think that the third objective was also to kind of run away a bit from the greed and profit narrative and try to make something a little bit different. So from the beginning, we created this smart contract on Tezos, which is basically the Fake Whale Vault, where one artist is minting one work each week in this vault, which is becoming a permanent collection. But the cool thing is that these works are actually not for sale. And so I think that to just close my speech here is that basically if I want to summarize in one word, I think legacy, and I think like to preserve a sort of native point of view for the museums of the future. It's really what we are into Fake Whale at the moment.
And Sky is the mastermind with Fake Will. Like, I'll say that. Like, he's the Yeah, there's no other word for it. He's the mastermind, like he's the one that is above it all and sees how it's all going to play out and sees the many tentacles of this beast that he's created and where they all are and what they're each doing, and he's on top of all of it. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I was sweeping. My goal with Fake Whale was always this idea that Sky touched on here of bridging. How do I even say this? It is bridging, but it's even more like I wanted to show people like, yo, this is cool. Like this is cool, and it doesn't have to have anything to even do with the monetary value of the crypto tokens or whatever. Like it's just cool what's happening here, like in concept, in a time of history. Like we're at a point that's almost like the second birth of the internet. Like we have an opportunity to be here early and see this unfold and have the opportunity to shape it, which is super exciting to me. But I wanted to show that on a larger scale, like to my Instagram audience per se, as an example, like a really trite example again, but like look how cool this is without me ever once bringing up markets, without ever once talking about how much I sold anything for, without ever, these cringy things that people don't like about what NFTs are attached to. Like you don't have to do that. You can also like appreciate it for what it actually is without all that jargon and hype and nonsense around it. And so that's kind of what always for me. That was hugely lacking, like just to show like how cool it was. Or, like I'm using cool so loosely. I wish I could think of a better word, but it's like just like we can be stylish about this. We can be chic about this. We can be, it doesn't have to be cartoons and stuff. Not, there's a place for everything, but it maybe there wasn't this place existed before, but we knew we could make it. Something like that. Maybe that's what it was. It was like we were just filling in some of these gaps where it was like me and Sky bonded so much when we first met over Tumblr, like the early days of Tumblr, and what we thought about that and what it did for each of our aesthetic appreciations, I guess. And that's kind of what I want to do. I wanted to like create this community of just like, internet weirdos doing cool art. Yeah, like there's so much like-mindedness between all these artists, even if the art's disparate. Like this, I think what Sky touched on too, this, like, he's like, there hasn't been a lot of artists who have been crazy enough. I think he said crazy enough to be interested in what's going on with Web3 and NFTs, or don't want to take the risk or whatever, But I think the people that are here are the ones that are crazy enough. And I think that's kind of what joined us all together. And I kind of wanted to show that too, like, so anyways, yeah, I think my role within Fake Whale is both curatorial, of course, because Sky and I talk a lot about aesthetic vision and things like that. But then also like I'm like the MTV VJ for Fake Whale or some shit like that, right? So yeah. Next
Thank you.
question.
Yes, it's coming. Thank you for that answer, and like thank you again for being here, for taking the time to talk to us. I would be curious. It seems like both of you have a few like artist identities, for the lack of a better term, right? Like maybe you're known in some ways in the NFT world, and in other ways in the traditional art world. Maybe you're doing some like art direction or fashion work, or SkyGolpe, you're talking about your early street art work and so on. I'm curious, how do these identities converge in how you present yourselves as artists? And like, do you even feel like they need to converge at all? Or have you ever felt any sort of external or internal pressure to appear more like cohesive or focused? Or is that not something that you're concerned with?
You want to start, Jesse?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you wanted to, or if I should. I can, sure. I think what you're asking, if I'm understanding what you're asking correctly, is I don't see them as separate. Like, so it's a little opposite of what you asked, where you said, like, do they even need to converge? You asked, and when you said that, I was thinking, like, I don't know when they diverge, more like it. So, but that's how I see it. And then I sometimes see outside of it and can think in this, like, like an objective standpoint and view my practice. And also it's just been told to me at some point, mostly long ago, but like people saying like, um, you need to focus on one thing more, and so that people can keep up, so that people can like get a grasp of what you do better, you'll be more successful that way. And while I understood what they were saying, it felt like they were also saying like, hey, dumb yourself down so that people can understand. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. And uh so yeah, I don't know if this is answering your question. Like this idea of like this having it, like I said at the beginning, I didn't know when they diverged really. Like I see it all, like a lot of people that see my work and I'll see it come together. But you're absolutely right that it is very disparate. It can be very disparate. Like I'm very well known in certain music circles, like for in a completely different way that I'm known within Web3 or NFTs. Within fashion, I'm completely, differently known than I am in music and in NFTs as well. And then, which is, well, I should say with fashion, I'm unknown because as another one of the members of Value Art, he has said, he always tells a story that, like years and years ago, all of the fashion houses had my work in their decks or whatever as like inspiration, but nobody knew who I was or knew what my name was and shit like that. So, I mean, like, maybe right there is the answer to your question, that it could have helped maybe if I was tying it all together a little bit better. But yeah, I guess for me at this point, it's not something like I'm too concerned with. It's one of the things that I actually think about. And then I think, should I try to, bring this all together more so that people understand it better? And then I forget about it and say, fuck it. So no, it's not for me to figure out in the long run. I don't think, history will take care of it. The legacy will take care of it, how it should be. But, if I get too caught up in that, I'm not going to be just doing what I want to do. But I think Sky might have a really different answer than this, because he's actually gone as far as to, have like multiple identities type thing, which that's another thing I find super interesting. Sometimes I have the thought experiment: if I were to start this all over, would I even use my name? Like, how fun would it be to just use a synonym or a pseudonym? I mean, excuse me. And nobody ever know who I was, and then be able to play with my own name or do things on a personal level, yada, yada. There's lots of ways to approach this. You only get one life, unfortunately. But Sky, I'll pass it to you.
I really understand these questions. I think it's a very good question. And I think, when I was younger, I was really paying attention to this, like to be cohesive and to sort of maintain this kind of style identity somehow. But the more I'm kind of mature in my art process, the more I am actually trying to focus almost on the opposite, almost as a sort of a creative exercise, because I think at the end of the day, is just a limit that we auto-impose to ourselves. I mean, is a limit that artists auto-impose to their self. I don't know if that makes sense, because no one is actually really forcing you to be in a certain way. It's actually something that is coming from within yourself that actually push you in this direction. And I find this very interesting. So, for example, with my latest conceptual work, which I'm starting on sharing, for me was a big step, because of course my SkyGolpe is associated with mostly these faceless portraits that I'm doing. But again, if I was younger, probably I would have started a new identity. But just because I think that art should be as much free as possible, and freedom should begin within the artist to really then express this freedom around. So I want my message to be in a way as wide as possible, and this is who I am. So I don't have to hide myself about this. And if you think about it, it's just a matter of time and consistency in anything that you do. Now, I'm not saying that to switch from one thing to another is ideal, but if you cultivate more things at the same time and you really can put effort and consistency in these things, they can easily coexist. And in my art practice, that's how I am also planning to evolve in time. And 23 was actually a big step for me, because I open a new channel, within my art products, practice, and experimentation. And I never felt so well, to be honest. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, those are both amazing answers. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add something too, and I bet you Sky agrees 100%. Is that I never set out to do it this way. It wasn't like I want to do all these little different things. It was like, I have this idea and here's what I need to do to execute it, or I have this concept and it fits within this, and that's just a natural path. So for everything I've done, it's always been the natural path of things. It's never been me trying to go out of my way to do a bunch of different shit for the purpose of doing different things. If that's your goal, it's not going to be authentic. And as Sky's kind of said, which kind of triggered me thinking this at the end of his answer there, is like, if you can, and that's kind of the thing. It's like, it's not for everybody to be so disparate. Some painters, couldn't be the painters they were if they tried doing a bunch of different things. But I just wanted to add that on at the end there, that I'm betting for Sky it's the same, that it was just like all these different paths that we've taken were just the means to the end of that we wanted. And those ends are always the same. No matter what road we get to it, we're always speaking to the same end. So it's just like the different paths that we had to take to get there.
I just want to say I'm really enjoying listening to you guys. It's very inspiring. I really love your spirit, your creative spirit. I connect a lot with what you're talking about. So it's great to be here. I'll say my work is also a lot of things. I understand the connection between all of those things. Sometimes it's not completely obvious, but I flow with it. And so this is really, really exciting to listen to. And I just wanted to right now just jump in and share that and say thank you. I'm really happy to be listening to you guys and to follow you more closely now. Super, super excited.
Yeah, the answers were great. Thank you for both answers. I was thinking about this idea of bridging and merging and colliding different worlds, and the fact that you both mentioned, I think SkyGolpe has now a physical show going on, and you, Jesse, said that you have one prepared for early summer this year. And I was thinking that in my case, and I think it's similar in your case, is we've been producing digital work for a very long time, sometimes even creating images that go just on social media and have no physical support, or even if they are made somehow throughout the process physically, they are meant to be shown on a device and be shown online and on a computer or a phone. And then I faced this myself, that sometimes I get, especially on Instagram, a DM from a curator or a gallery asking me for a piece for a group show or something like this. And they are asking for dimensions or support or medium. And that work actually doesn't exist physically, because it's a digital image that was meant to be like that. And I'm really having a hard time trying to understand how to go back to the physical world with works that were created digitally. And I don't think that just going back to this current idea of showing and displaying digital works only with screens feels enough to me, because there is much more you can do within space. So I'm sure you've thought a lot about this, and I would love to hear about your challenges and what you think, if it's been challenging at your approach in terms of translating what you do digitally into a physical show, and how to display it and show it in a physical realm.
Yeah, I love this. I love this question a lot. Sky, do you want to go first, or?
I don't mind, bro. You just go first.
All right. I think it's hilarious what you're asking there about, like, when you finish a piece digitally and then a gallery comes asking, or whoever comes asking, like, what the dimensions of it are. and not knowing how to answer that, because like I'm in the same place with so much of my work. I've been in this place for like almost a decade because like I'm capable of making this piece or creating it again digitally. I'm really good at that now. I'm like, I've got that so dialed in. But when I get asked that and the piece doesn't exist physically yet, my response that I want to give is like, well, what do you want it at? Or like, you know, like what, like, so for collectors, that's really cool. Like it could be like, well, it doesn't exist physically yet, so if you want it, I can make it to the size that you would want it. Which that's pretty dope. And then as far as galleries, it's like, well, I guess I'll just make up some dimensions for you. That's what I do, at least. I just make some shit up, man. You can make up. But the other thing that I think we're touching on, and the reason I like this question so much, is that I think that we're entering, or at least like, you know, you and I at least are together. Sky's in a group with us where uh, it's like what it like. I don't know what the term for it would be, where it's just like this new form of art, or it's not even a form of art, but it's like this new idea, this new approach to art, or a new approach to whatever, where it's just like asking that question is going to be able to be just thrown out the window, where it's just like doesn't matter, like it doesn't exist physically, so digitally it can be the size of a building, it could be as small as a phone, it can be on a watch, you know, or it could be it could be turned into a physical thing, and it could be any size you want it to, because the way that I make my work now is in this. I work so much physically, but the way that I assemble it all in these digital ways, it makes it so malleable in the secondary, or like in that digital realm. But from that digital realm, it's so malleable in a way that it can be reproduced in even greater effect to greater scales and stuff because of its digital nature. So it's like a weird kind of crux there between, you know, where people think if something digitally doesn't have any physical representation any longer, or if it's only digital, it's not also physical. But the way that I'm working is like its digitalness enhances its physicalness, if that kind of makes sense. If those aren't the right words, but whatever. But anyways, I think that we're at like this interesting point, you and I at least, in Sky, where those kind of questions need to be, you know, evaluated differently, or galleries are going to have to start thinking about things differently, or that we don't need to worry about these kind of constrictions of the past any longer. So yeah, but until then, until everybody else catches up, I think that we just have fun with it because there's no rules. So when somebody asks the dimensions, I just say, you know, like, you know, whatever I want. There's the constriction. So like, that's the better question than like, what's the dimensions of this? Is like, what's the aspect ratio of this? Is it 8:10? Is it 9:16? Is it 16:9? You know, I'm joking kind of, but I mean, seriously, it's kind of, that's where we're at. It's kind of funny, but Guy, I'll pass it to you.
No, but I totally understand what you're saying, and I also agree that basically, in a way, it's gonna also be something that the industry will have to kind of evolve into meeting the market that is happening in digital art, because at the end of the day, a digital native artist could also not be so bothered, because he can share his work, okay? He can share it digitally, millions of people can view it, and he also has his market into the digital realm. So I think that for a native digital artist, you know, is something that definitely will have to be explored by this new industry that is gonna start to really support digital art. In my case, is a little bit different because I also come from the physical background. So the way I like to look at it is I'm dividing things between three media. Okay, so one media is the digital media. One media is the physical media, and the third media is the physical representation of the digital media into physicality. So in this thing, my passion and experience on installations kind of helps me to conceptualize solutions and you know, possible variables, and so yeah, it just becomes almost like a piece of art itself, I suppose. If you want to really get to the bottom of it, it's almost like a separate piece, or at least that's how I intend it. Then of course, like, we are in the very early time, so sometimes we also had to find how do you say, like a meeting point with the people who are starting to host digital events, etc., because this is very new, so I understand what Jesse say when he's talking about ratio, etc. So there has been many situations where screens doesn't really seem like the best way to show this. But again, I've been also trying to be tolerant and supportive as much as I can, because I also understand how early we are, and we are all building this together, so yeah, I think that's my take on it.
I wanted to jump in on that thing about the size, the dimensions. I've never been able to answer that in the way that any database or gallery requests. It's usually inches or feet or something, and not even something like that, right? So for me, it's been like a mile, a decade, 18 miles of string, street wide, 7 days, things like that. And I like to play with that. And I just wanted to, so this was really exciting to hear this come up. And I also been thinking as you're presenting, because right now I got a little grant for help putting together a business plan. And my presentation is in a couple of days. And yesterday I was meeting with my mentor for some help with the database, entering my information. And my information, my I want to put quote unquote products, my things, didn't fit into one area. They had to be broken down into two parts. And it so happened to be that the stuff that is as NFTs ended up in one area, but it wasn't my intention. That's just how they broke it up. And he was mentioning something about that. Maybe I needed to have those two things separate. And for me, it's not separate. It's all interwoven, and it's like a going back and forth of physical space to virtual space to physical to it's just to individual to collective. It's interplay, and it's something that I play with, and and that I see often. And this came up in another one of the meetings the other day, that a lot of times the infrastructures that are presented to us, we don't fit into them. We have to budget. We have to play with them. But sometimes we just don't fit. I just feel like I don't fit into them. Like the questions that are asked don't they try to oversimplify. So anyway, I don't know if you guys want to respond to that, but that's kind of another area where I'm getting excited about this merging here, this conversation. Thank you. Like maybe any feedback on this thing with my business plan for Monday.
Well, what you're talking about is like, I totally understand. It's things that have caused me a lot of anxiety over the last, my entire career, trying to fit into, like you said, the infrastructures that exist. And like, when you don't fit into those, like, how do you respond? For the longest time, I just wouldn't like answer that kind of stuff, or it just like, I was a pain to deal with probably because of that. But I totally get what you're saying. But at this point in my career, I'm definitely an advocate for these infrastructures needing to meet the artists where we are, rather than us having to meet them where they are. That's definitely like an artist empowerment attitude, while at the same time understanding the need for it to some degree, because like otherwise it would just be pure chaos. Like nothing would ever be able to be understood if we didn't like categorize to some degree. I get that, but I'm definitely more on the side of like the infrastructure needing to meet us where we are. And it never will though. And it can't keep up. It's the same as like taxes, right? Like it's just like, it's never going to be able to be on the bleeding edge with us as we would like it to. So they're going to want to simplify us. And at least for me, that's what causes anxiety, where it's like, oh shit, if I simplify, it's going to not be understood how I want it to be understood. So I think what you were saying at the beginning of your rant there about miles of string and stuff like that, and asking for dimensions and playing with it in those ways, that's a lot of fun. And that's exactly what you should do. Like, just bend these infrastructures as much as possible to what you mean. like to be as creative with it too. I think being creative with these things is really interesting too. Like I wish I would have been more bold in my younger years to be a lot more playful instead of just being fearful of those infrastructures. But the way that you're being playful sounds, like a fun way to go about it.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate hearing that. I connect so much with it. I connect so much with that. The having that structure or that box that you have to fit into gives you a way to play. It gives you a way to play. But yeah, everything you said. Yeah,
I never even wanted to do artist statements. I thought artist statements were even too something, like too much of a box. Like I was like, why? Like this is so old school, such an old idea. Like that we have to be able to, that we have to be able to write and talk about our work, as well as like the work has to be also really good. But like I always felt like if the work's really good, it should speak for itself, but also like I felt incapable of speaking about it. So, and then I felt like, oh, because I can't write an artist statement must mean it's not good, or I'm not a good artist or something. And like that used to give me so much anxiety, that idea. But now I look back and I was like, why wasn't I just writing poems and sending them poems about like what I ate for breakfast? That's what I should have been doing. I should have been like writing about the oat milk latte I had for breakfast. Could have been my artist statement. That was great. And so, yeah, anyway, that's where I'm at with that kind of stuff.
I love it. Thank you.
Hey guys, we have about 2 minutes before we are officially closing the stage for questions. We can of course stay longer if you if Jesse and Sky want to stay over a little longer. However, if you have any kind of questions, I would say that now is the best time to ask them, because if not, we're just going to thank them and close the questions. Okay, group silence. Marta?
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you all so much. It's been wonderful. I'm really inspired and excited.
Hey, I have a question for Sky. Like, what do we have going on with Fake Whale coming up, man? What? I think next week we're doing a drop, but like I think we're here kind of as Fake Whale and stuff. And what does the next little bit? What are we doing?
Okay, so basically we have probably the most badass drop coming, featuring you of course, Lucas Aguirre, Nikita Diacour, and I with the most likes. So I think it's gonna be really a legendary drop happening on Nifty on the 1st of February, and it's gonna also be a Nifty curated drop. So yeah, I mean, in the very short term, we have this one, and then we have big things coming for February. So we're working on the announcements, etc. So I don't want to spoiler too much, but I think the first big happening is gonna be this drop, which it just makes me super proud to be able to showcase some of my favorite artists basically in the space. So yeah, that definitely tune in for that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't even thinking about that at the moment. But that's next week sometime, and we're also doing a spaces for that. So everybody stay tuned. We have so much fun in the spaces. The Fake Love spaces are the bomb. And I know like Guy will be in there with me, and I believe Lucas and Nikita will also be there. But that will be a lot of fun.
And definitely looking to collaborate with Vertical more in the future as well. So definitely it's very important, the synergy between people that are aligned in vision and ideas. So it's a very open model at Fake Whale. But of course is open only with the people that we really feel affinities to, which I think is a very good recipe for success in a way. So yeah, stay tuned for all the new things coming, and thanks for the invitation, everyone. It was a pleasure to be here, and some artists of you. I actually am a collector of Andres sand. So yeah, it was a real pleasure, guys.
For your graciousness, both of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.